Welcome, everybody. We're going to finish up our Unit 2 exercise, which is entitled Retrieve Data from a Single Table. If you recall, last week we were working with MySQL Workbench, and we made it a good number of the way through some of these bullet points here. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to look back at MySQL Workbench, which is up and running. MySQL Server is running in the background, which I ensured beforehand. And I'm just trying to figure out where I left off, basically, because sometimes I'm really good about commenting about like what I'm doing, and sometimes I'm not really good about it. And my recommendation is with the SQL code that we're creating here, by the way, most of these exercises will be like you're going to create a SQL file, and you'll have the SQL file, and the other part of the process is to take the code that you write and then put it into that Word document so I can see what you wrote and what the output was, right? So that's kind of like a thing. When you're submitting your work, you can submit that Word file and you can submit the SQL file. Some students opt to create separate SQL files for every little thing. I'm going to tell you right now, because you can selectively run the queries, it really doesn't matter. One SQL file is adequate. Do you have to turn in a SQL file? I don't think I require it, but it's not a bad idea. And one of the reasons for that is that way I have a backup copy of your file. So let's say somebody steals your laptop. Hey, no problem. I got your files. They're in Brightspace. I can extract them and you can have them right back. All right. All right. So we did number one, number two. We did number three. So this one was number three. And then I guess this one was number four, right? Speculating. And let's just verify that, number four. And then, so that's number four. And now we're at number five. And number five says, how many items or rows are in the customer table? Okay, so I know how to do this, obviously, because I've done it before, but I do want to kind of point out the fact that we kind of did this already, right? So if I wanted to see how many rows there are in that table, the customers table, there's a few different ways I can accomplish this. So it's from a really practical sense, right? The one way would be to just use the tool that's built into MySQL Workbench. And if you guys remember here in the schemas tab, they have this third little icon, which is basically writes a generic select statement. So you can see that, right? And it just shows you all the stuff in the table. And it tells you here that it worked and how many rows were returned. And guess what? That's kind of your answer, right? And I can look at the data and very easily go, oh, 8 rows, no problem. 8. The answer is 8. Not 7, not 6, but 8. But what if, okay, so this is where we get to with this kind of stuff. Okay, so this is a sample database. We really don't have a lot of customers. But what if we were dealing with Amazon.com? How big would the customer list be for Amazon.com? You don't even want to think about it, right? You'd be sitting here for 3 days waiting for it to load on your screen, is what would happen. So you don't want to run a generic query like this to pull back all the records just to do a count. It makes no sense. That is why we have code like this. So really the answer to number 5 is to do the same thing we really did before, and just figure out how many we have by just doing that count, right? So we will change the table name though, because we're not looking at products anymore. We're looking at customers. So we're running the function, right? Count, which selects all the records, counts them from the customers table, and then just returns the result of that. So I'm going to just run that query. So I'm using the second lightning bolt here. And what happened? Well, it failed. It says no database select. Okay, so this goes back to day one stuff. What didn't I do? You guys remember what I did last time when I started? Remember this statement up here? Yeah.
Oh, use.
Yeah, and this is a great example because I do have more than one database loaded. So when I run my code, it's like, okay, which customer table? You didn't specify. So here's what I'm going to do. I don't have to retype the query, by the way. You just go to the top of the file. You can highlight it if you want, or just put your cursor on that line and just run that. And now we're attached to that. So now when I go back down to this query, I can click back into it, hit the lightning bolt, and now it's running. And what's the answer? Well, we already knew the answer because we saw it, but the answer is 8. So if you're screenshotting this, right, to submit it, um, I would screenshot it just kind of like the way I just did it, which is like this, right? Yeah, you can see all of it in one screenshot, the output and the query. Nice, tight, big, easy to read. So that's number 5. All right, moving on. I'm going to create some blank lines down here. And next we'll have number 6. And number 6 says display the full name of each customer. Notice they give an example here, last name first. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So some of you may have been guessing at this and maybe just kind of grab both, or maybe watch a video and figured it out. And we're going to grab that of each customer from the customers table, sorted by last name. And it says, hint, you'll need to concatenate the last and the first name. So here comes a teaching point kind of intermingled into doing the homework. So we have this like weird new terminology. And I hate this teacher mode here because it does that to me every time I click on it. But I just wanted to highlight the word concatenate. Concatenate is one of those really weird IT words, right? And any IT person that knows how to write code will instantaneously understand that you're not a coder if you speak that word and you get a blank look on your face, right? Like, yeah, what's that? But a coder will say, aha, concatenation. Concatenation is the process of taking 2 strings or 2 pieces of text and joining them together. That's what it means, right? Some people will abbreviate that, by the way. So they'll say concatenate, concatenation, or concat even. But it's the joining of text, right? So I will show you that little process here. We complete that basically by another function called the concat function. And I think that if we looked up on W3, we would find it. And in fact, here, let's do it like this. W3 schools, and we'll say MySQL concat. And I'll do it with parentheses because I think I'll get a better result. But just to kind of show you what concat does, right? And by the way, concat, like count, is what we call a built-in function in the MySQL coding language. And what it does is it has a predetermined series of steps that it completes. But remember what concatenation is, right? Concatenation is the joining of text and linking it together. So normally, like if I run a query on a database and I query your last name and your first name, those 2 pieces of information will come up in separate columns in the result. So if I wanted to get an output like what the homework designates, which is I want to see last name, comma, first name, well, not only do I need to query the last name and the first name, but I somehow need to put them in that order and insert a comma and a space into the mix, right? And that's our goal, right? So as we look at the concat function here, it basically works as follows. You use the expression, a set of parentheses, and the things inside, separated by commas, are the things you're joining together, right? So let's do a little bit of an example. So if I wanted to concatenate, for example, somebody's address, followed by a space, followed by the postal code, followed by a space, followed by the city, this is my command, right? So these are the things I'm joining together. And notice, if I just took the information and didn't have this piece in it, it wouldn't add the space to it. It would, for example, take like 123 Elm Street, Milwaukee, and just stick them together. Pretty useless. It would make no sense, right? Pretty easy little tool to use, by the way, but that's my whole lecture on it. not really a super lot of lecture, but we will achieve that effect. So here comes the code for that. So we are going to select, and we know we're going to concatenate the first and the last, or last name comma first name. So I'm going to just say concat parentheses. And I have this tendency, by the way, whenever I'm like typing commands like this, to close both parentheses right away. My hands kind of do it automatically if my IDE is not doing it. And this IDE does not automatically close it, by the way. All right. So what pieces of information from the customers table do we want to look at? Oh, you know what? I forgot what's in the customers table already. Yeah, it was a week, right? So I can once again click the little query window here and look, right? Well, I got ID, email, password, first name, last name. Oh, it's first underscore name, last underscore name. Okay, got all I need to write my query. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say last underscore name, comma, and then I want it to have a comma right after the name and a space and then the first name. So inside of quotes, I do a comma, space, double quote. So this, what's inside those quotes, that literal amount of text will print in between. Then another comma after the second double quote, and then we'll grab the first name. And here's the other interesting aspect of this. Okay. And it's asking us to display the full name. And this is one of those things that's a little strange to do, but I'm going to do what we call aliasing this new data. So think about what's going to happen. It's going to pull back both columns, join back the text in the order I want with this extra comma and space, and it's going to put it in a new column. And if I don't tell it what that column's called, it's going to come up with some weird name, right? So I'm going to tell it what to call it, and I'm going to call it full name. This is not going to change the structure of my data, mind you. It in the output of my query, I'll have a column that'll be called full name that will contain this concatenated information with a column header called full name. Right. All right. Where are we pulling this from? From the customers table, right? From customers. And we're going to order by last name. Why? Because we were told to. All right. So let's go ahead and run that. This is a selective run now. And once again, I'll scroll here, readjust my screens. So these are all my customers. Notice the column header is full name because I told it what to say. And look at the last names. They are in alphabetical order, and we have last name, comma, space, first name, and it worked just fine. So that's number 6, folks. All right, I assume you guys are all good. All right, now let's move on to number 7. Number 7 says display all columns from the customers table where the last name is Brown. Okay, so apparently we have more than one Brown, and in 8-row table we can just kind of look it up. Let's just come over to MySQL Workbench here and build that. So let's think about this. How many or which records are we going to be selecting? And it's basically everything that matches our where clause or our criteria. So I'm not picking anything weird here. I'm selecting everything because it didn't say I only want to see the address column. It said I want to see all the columns. So I'm selecting all the columns from customers. And now it's the condition that does all the work. Where last name is like, or it's kind of like a way of saying equals, right? Brown. And notice I am using a capital B here, although I'll say that it's optional. Now, some of you might also notice, hey, you're using single quotes now. Did you make a mistake? No, and I'll drive home this point. Single quotes or double quotes are okay. The reason that coding languages allow for that is so that if I wanted to, like, what if the last name had an apostrophe in it, like O'Donnell or something weird like that, right? I would put double quotes around that and I'd put the single quote on the inside and it would be fine. You see the thinking? So that's kind of the thought process on it. All right. So this is the query. That's all we need. I'm going to hit the singular run here, and there's our output. So is it true that I only have one person in the customers table that has the last name of Brown? I don't know. Let's go look at our previous query and just verify that what the query is bringing back is correct. So I'm looking at all the last names here, and sure enough, there's only one Brown, and it is Christine. If I had another Brown in there, it would pull that back too. Okay. So let's call that one done. And then I think we have one more here. Display the order ID, order date, and ship date from the orders table where the ship date is null. Okay, let's think about that for a second. Under what circumstance would the ship date be null, meaning it didn't ship? Well, how about we just got the order and we haven't shipped it yet? Or, hey, we're waiting for inventory, or that just came in. Give me a second to put it in a box and put a label on it. Right? It's those types of scenarios. So sometimes, there's little intellectual leaps that happen here. And it's not super intellectual, obviously, but why would this be helpful? Because if I was a shipping manager, I want to know what orders haven't shipped yet. I can look at them on a list. I can just run this query and get the list of what didn't ship yet. Great, right? Very useful and actually very practical if you think about it. All right, let's write this one. All right, so this is going to be number 8. And in this case, we're told to select the order ID. Right. Now you can do this, by the way, and I'm going to do it a couple different ways just to show you. Order date, comma, and ship date. Right. I could put all 3 columns listed like that. What some DBAs or database people will do is they'll often do stuff like this, where they align them like this. Because if I'm like selecting 20 columns, this makes them a whole lot easier to read and see. I mean, that's just personal. And mind you, they can go all the way across. The one query can go like as long across the screen as you want to make it. That's fine, right? The computer doesn't care. It's our eyes that matter. So you know what? Since the computer is basically ignoring the extra white space in here, use it. Use it to make your eyes comfortable. Make it so you can read the queries really well. And I think this is way clearer than if I did that. I think that's easier to read. And you may agree or you may disagree. I don't know. But I like this better. Okay. And then we'll say, where are we grabbing this from? From the orders table. And remember, if you don't remember what's in the orders table, go look. Right? They told you which columns to select, but hey, never hurts to look at the data. And our condition is where the ship date, and this is really kind of weird because we have it as a keyword, is basically the same as saying equals and null. So this is kind of a combo statement. And null is also another one of these weird talking points in IT. All right. When and I feel compelled to talk about it a little bit, right? So like if we look at our number system, right? And let's say I have, I don't know, apples, right? And I give Martin 2 apples, I give Luke 1 apple, and Finley, I didn't give you any apples, right? How many apples does Finley have? It would not be appropriate to say null. Finley has 0 apples, but 0 is a quantifiable number on the number line. Just because she has none, there's still a value there. The value is 0. Null, on the other hand, is the absence of a value. It's not even 0. Right? It's a weird way to think about it is not even nothing. So null is the absence of anything. Is a way to think of it. All right. So, all right. Isn't that just the same as nothing? Yeah, sort of is, right? But I'm just trying to explain the concept, and if you can go into all sorts of little pontifications about this. Um, in computer science, the concept of null becomes a really major concept. All right, let's go ahead and run this query. I'm going to hit the little lightning bolt here, and you will see that these are the orders, order ID 6, 8, and 9 that don't have a ship date. We can see the ship date came back with a little null indicator in there, meaning no data has been placed in there. It's not a 0. It's not a date. There's just nothing in there, right? So if you think of every cell on a spreadsheet or in a database table as being a container, like a variable or a box or a jar, there's nothing in that one. No, not even air, right? That's not even in there either, right? It's the absence of all. All right, that completes the homework, folks. The other little aspect of this for those of you that are in my classes is as you complete all the steps, right, make sure you take screenshots of your code and your output, right? If you can do it in one screenshot, great. What I do want to keep you from doing ideally though is screenshotting the whole screen at once. That's not really convenient for me. Try to zoom in on your code like I was doing before my screenshot. Put those screenshots into a Word doc and give me some comments. Tell me what I'm looking at. If things went great, you don't have to say much. This is number 4. It worked. Yay, right? Number 5 was a complete nightmare. Help. Red text, bold, yellow underline, whatever, you know. You want to get my attention on it. If you really have that kind of situation, you probably should be emailing me or bringing it up right now during the class session. But I want to see what challenges you had. And like if you had a challenge and you were stuck and then you figured out your way around it, tell me that too. That for me is useful. And if you wish, right, and I'll do this last step, you know, all of that is embedded into the document that's attached to this assignment. The other thing that you can do is you can take this SQL file that we've created right now. It's just called query 1, and you can do a save as on this, right? Save the script, and it's just like a regular text file, folks. You can just put it wherever you put your homework. What I typically do for each semester that I'm teaching a course, and I got to make sure I'm on the right class here. There we go. Is I make a folder, right? So I'll make a folder for, and actually I like to do year first, 2025 summer. And then I'll put all my SQL files, all my stuff, whatever. If you want to have subfolders, go for it. I'm going to opt to put everything in the root folder here. And I'm just going to say U2, right, for unit 2. And what do we call this? Single table SQL, if you want to call it that. Or just unit 2 assignment, probably works fine too. And then when you go to submit the work, you can also include the SQL file, right? So that's helpful as well. But the screenshot document is primary. So just make sure you follow those instructions. All right, folks, this video ends here.